renewables has become one of the major societal successes of our time. However, future adoption could be limited by shortage of suitable
converting sand into remarkable green hydrogen molecules and their derivatives like green hydrogen and ammonia, green methanol, and sustainable aviation fuel. Our commitment to sustainability isn't just about reducing carbon emissions, but energizing communities, fostering growth, and building a future filled with clean and sustainable possibilities. This is just the beginning. Join us as we write the next chapter of energy, a chapter filled with innovation, responsibility, and endless potential.
Envision is among us the top 5 green tech global companies. We offer comprehensive and integrated solutions for clean energy and aim to become preferred net zero tech partner to our esteemed customers. Our mission is solving the challenges for sustainable future. Envision designs, sells, operates smart wind turbines, smart energy storage systems, hydrogen electrolyzers, digital solutions. We have global innovation centers in Germany, Denmark, USA, Japan, Singapore, and China. We have invested around 500 crores in India, established 3 gigawatts annual manufacturing capacity in Pune, Maharashtra for National Hub, and 2.5 gigawatts annual manufacturing capacity in blades with 9 molds in Trichy, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Gujarat. We further geared up to increase our manufacturing capacity from 2.5 gigawatts to 4 gigawatts depending on market demand.
We are indeed strengthening our Indian financials, and of course, we also draw and sort of leverage our parent financials to draw a working capital at a very, very competitive price across major banks in India. We have a robust cash management system which drives our growing business seamlessly and support our extremely strong supply chain management, which is our key differentiator.
We, as a vertically integrated company with in-house design and manufacturing of all key turbine components, help to offer lowest LCOE turbine with enhanced equipment reliability and certainty on turbine delivery to customers. Our turbine models are equipped with advanced condition monitoring system having artificial intelligence based digital twin models which help in performance monitoring and predictive fault diagnosis.
We started small, but we started well. We brought in a product which was most apt for the wind regime in the country. It proved its competency in terms of the uptime and also performance. And most important aspect that the market saw was the timelines of delivery. So supply chain has been a huge strength besides the technology superiority that the turbine carries. And then came 2021 or 22 when the market suddenly grew the size through the CNI application of the wind turbines. So besides the auctions regime of selling power, the CNI market really grew in a very high pace. So that gave a great opportunity for Envision to use its technology and supply chain strengths to capture the market and grow the size to a level which was completely unprecedented in the 2 decades or 2.5 decades of wind history in the country. Further, considering the fast-growing demand for energy storage solutions in India, we are ready to launch state-of-the-art lithium-ion battery-based energy storage solutions. Envision acquired Nissan AAC's battery manufacturing business in 2019 and has increased the production capacity in merely 4 years. We aim to reach 300 gigawatt hour by 2025 with plants across UK, France, Spain, US, Japan, and potentially India, besides China.
Our success
in the field of energy transition has been recognized globally. Envision has been ranked top 10 in the world's 50 smartest companies by MIT Tech Review. Envision ranked second in Fortune magazine's Change the World list in 2021. Our aim in India is to lead an energy technology revolution in an open and collaborative manner. As India enters a period of sustained economic growth, Envision is proud and excited to participate in the push to make India a 10 trillion economy by 2035. We will continue to create high quality direct and indirect jobs as a result of our business expansion.
As part of Atmanirbhar Bharat and localization drive, we have made significant progress in localization with our strong SCM capabilities. We achieved 45% within 1 year. We are in final stage of sourcing other key components from India, which will increase localization content from 45% to 70% next 1 year.
Hello. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the plenary session 5, India's pathway to net zero emissions here at RE Invest 2024. It is a pleasure to have you all over here with us as we explore India's bold ambition of achieving net zero emissions by 2070. Here we will discuss the challenges, opportunities, and strategies needed to transform this vision into reality across various sectors, from energy to industry. India has already taken commendable steps, including the National Hydrogen Mission and incentives for electric mobility and energy storage, leading the charge in fostering innovation and sustainable. We await the arrival of our esteemed guests. They will be over here in very short while from now. Until then, we request you to kindly put your mobile phones on silent mode or vibrating mode. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, a warm welcome to each one of you. And I humbly request to those who have joined us late to kindly put their mobile phones on silent mode or vibrating mode. All our esteemed dignitaries have arrived in Mahatma Mandir and they will be here in the hall in a very short while from now. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Shri Bhupendra Yadav, Honorable Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. It is indeed a pleasure to have you over here, sir. We once again welcome all of you in this important plenary session. India has set an ambitious goal of achieving net zero emissions by 2070 as part of its nationally determined contribution to the UNFCCC. This session highlights the government's efforts through key initiatives like the National Hydrogen Mission and the PLI scheme for battery storage, fostering innovation and sustainable development. Please help me welcome Honorable Cabinet Minister, New and Renewable Energy, Shri Prahlad Joshi. It is indeed a pleasure to have the dignitaries over here. Dhanyavad. Now we will welcome on the dais Shri Bhupendra Yadav, Honorable Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. Along with sir, we would also like to welcome Shri P.K. Singh, Officer on Special Duty, Government of India, Shri R.P. Gupta, Chairman and Managing Director, Solar Energy Corporation of India, Mr. Saurabh Khedekar, President and Chief Executive Officer, Specialty Alumina Business, Hindalco Industries Limited, Mr. Manoj Tanwar, Chief Technical Officer, Greenco, Mr. Nishit Mehta, Chief Business Officer, Serentica Renewables, Mr. Chandan Goswami, Chief Financial Officer, Jackson Green. We request all the speakers to kindly take up the stage, please, and also welcome Honorable Minister, sir. Thank you very much. Would foremost request Honorable Minister Sir Shri Prahlad Joshi to kindly welcome Honorable Minister Shri Bhupendra Yadav with a shawl. Thank you very much, sir, for doing the gesture. In order to kickstart this significant session, Foremost, I invite Mr. P.K. Singh, Officer on Special Duty, Government of India, to deliver the welcome address and also give the introductory remarks. Welcome, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I deem it a privilege to be present here today in front of you to extend a very warm welcome for this very important session on India's pathway to net zero emissions on the third day of the fourth edition of RE Invest. Who better could have been there in the session other than the Union Minister for Forest, Environment and Climate Change? Sir, I extend a very warm welcome to you for taking out your valuable time and being with us today. I also extend a very warm welcome to our own Minister, Minister for MNRE, Food and Public Distribution and Consumer Affairs, Shri Prahlad Joshi, for being there with us on all these 3 days and encouraging us and motivating us through all these sessions. All the dignitaries on and off the dais, members from the media, ladies and gentlemen. Before I come to the topic, I still see that my ticker of 5 minutes has not started, so I'm very happy about that. There was an article on the 1st of September in the Daily Guardian, published from London, and by a very famous Western journalist or journalist come historian, where he talked about the invention of zero. He gave empirical evidence, he gave a lot of theoretical analogy also, saying how zero was invented by Brahmagupta and how it was taken to the Arabian world and then to Europe. But the interesting part is in the same article, he concludes that 3/4 of a century down post-independence, there is widespread acknowledgement that India's moment has now come. And he also says that we will probably end the 21st century by being in the pole position, perhaps ahead of even countries like China and the US. Those were very encouraging words coming from a Western journalist in a Western media. But I have no hesitation in sharing this, that the things which have unfolded in the last 10 odd years and the way targets have been fixed, realistic targets I must say, this target of net emission, zero emissions is also not very difficult to achieve. And like other targets which have been achieved 9 years before their closure, this also will be achieved probably a decade or two before the slated time. The good part is that it also coincides with our vision of our Honorable Prime Minister for Viksit Bharat 2047. A lot of people question about the numbers which are there, but let me tell you, we have been all part of this exercise. Every number which has been thrown before all of you for Viksit Bharat 2047 has been very carefully thought of. A lot of rigor has gone into it. We have supporting data for what has happened over the 10 years, last 10 years, from 2014 down to 2024. Even if you go on at the same trajectory of business as usual, you are pretty close to the targets. So the general mahal in the country is very positive. And in line with that, I'll come to this, our very own target which Minister has announced, about 500 gigawatt by 2030. People say it's a very good, huge number. It would have been a huge number in 2013 or 14, when we were just 2.3 gigawatt of solar power, 2.8 gigawatt of solar power. In 10 years, ladies and gentlemen, that solar power alone has grown 31 times. And we are just looking at a 3-fold increase over the next 6 years. So that's not a difficult target at all. Along with that, sir, for this net zero emission, there are several other sectors which are going to be part of it, which have to work hand in glove. The key mantra here is that India is a complex country and this is a complex problem. Everybody, including the government, that is the central and the state governments, the industry, the environmentalists, the stakeholders, everybody has to work on the same page for its achievement much before target. With that, sir, I'll take leave, and since the ticker is not there, I presume my 5 minutes are over, and I look forward to hearing from you and the other speakers. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for your warm welcome note and also for setting the tone of the event. Now, let us hear from Mr. R.P. Gupta, Chairman and Managing Director, Solar Energy Corporation of India, a leader in pushing forward India's renewable energy goals. Welcome, sir.
Honorable Minister, Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Sri Bhupendra Yadav ji, Honorable Minister, Sri Prahlad Joshi, Minister for New and Renewable Energy, Food, Consumer Affairs and Civil Supplies. Dignitaries on the dais and the great audience, good morning to you all. Sir, I remember Glasgow when under the guidance of Honorable Prime Minister and your daily guidance to us, we set the goal of net zero by 2070. I distinctly remember that when we were discussing the 2030 targets and the net zero targets, Honorable Prime Minister has cautioned that do not go by what you have achieved so far. What you have picked up so far are the low-hanging fruits, and the journey to net zero will become tougher and tougher. But at the same time, he was steadfast that fighting the climate change is the country's resolve. And we must set very ambitious targets. The technological changes which have taken place since then and the rapid pace at which technology is changing and helping this energy transition assures me that we will be not only reaching the net zero by 2070, but probably much before that. I remember, sir, when I was Joint Secretary in Ministry of Coal in 2015, 16, 17, we used to discuss what will be the future of coal and when will renewable energy, in its true leveraging term, will catch up with thermal energy. And the assessment which I had that renewable energy with the firm and dispatchable kind of renewable energy which thermal energy is, would sometime achieve equivalence in 2030 or so. After that, when I moved to Niti Aayog, the way battery prices were coming down, I revised my goal from 2030 to somewhere 2027. And now dealing with the nuts and bolts of renewable energy in SECI, I'm very happy to report that almost thermal energy, I will still use word almost, which is the FDRE tenders which we brought out during current year, we have been able to achieve a tariff of sub rupees 5. Now this sub rupees 5 is very, very important. If you take a new coal plant, the tariff is going to be above 5 rupees. But for renewable energy, a tariff of rupees 5 which is going to remain fixed for next 25 years. Unlike coal plants where the tariff is going to increase, its operational and maintenance cost is going to increase. There are going to be new environment and emission regulations which will come during this course of 25 years, which will significantly add to the cost of that. So with this, now the at par level for thermal energy and renewable energy has come to 2024. But the goal still remains daunting. There are challenges which we will have to meet. 2030 goals are intermediary goals. We all know about them. 500 gigawatts of non-fossil energy, which we will definitely meet. The goal beyond that, when our energy needs are going to increase, roughly our per capita consumption of energy is just 1/6 of the world average. So imagine the quantum of energy which we have to consume. I'm not saying that we will be consuming 6 times what we are consuming today per capita. Energy efficiency will have to play a very big role in reducing our energy consumption without compromising on the standard of living. But what Niti Aayog has estimated is a goal of about 2,000 gigawatt by 2047. And storage will have to play a very big role. Some of the challenges that we'll have to tackle is the issues of the land, particularly from the state governments, and the regulations on land. Our regulatory framework, which must force the states to meet their obligations. The transmission system is going to be a very big stumbling block, and it's coming on the right time is necessary. Some of the other challenges which we will be facing is what is called climate justice. In the context of country, the eastern part, which is currently the main supplier of energy, and its significant livelihood and revenues are dependent on it, will lose the significance, and it will shift to the south and west. So that issue, apart from at the international level where we are facing this climate inequity, we'll have to tackle this climate equity here in the country as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gupta, for sharing your thoughts on the future of solar energy in our net zero pathway. I would now like to invite Mr. Saurabh Khedekar, President and CEO of the Specialty Alumina Business at Hindalco Industries Limited, to offer his industry insights. Welcome, sir.
Honorable Minister Bhupendra Yadav ji, Honorable Mr. Prahlad Joshi ji, dignitaries on the dais and of the dais, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to participate in this esteemed forum today and speak about India's journey towards a green energy transition. As the largest developing nation, India faces the near impossible trinity of achieving high economic growth, maintaining fiscal discipline, and addressing climate change all at the same time. As the world's third largest emitter of greenhouse gases, about 88% of India's energy remains accounted for by fossil fuels still. Of course, on a per capita basis, this is still half of what the world is, but that is unfortunately not an advantage for us because we are late to the party, and many others have come to this party and have spoilt the scene so much that climate change has become really urgent. While India's COP26 announcement to reach net zero by 2070 shows its commitment to climate change in the long run, we've also made significant commitments of an ambitious target by 2030, that of 500 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity by 2030, of reducing the energy emission intensity by 45%, as well as taking 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide out of the system by 2030. Let's not forget, India's huge scale of growth in the next decade will require rapid expansion in energy. And these targets, in the context of that kind of growth, are pretty gigantic. To reach net zero emissions by 2070, India will require investments to the tune of $10 to $17 trillion as per varying estimates. IEA's estimate of $160 billion per annum between now and 2030 is about 3 times the current investment levels. This is some really big money we are talking about. In summary, the building blocks of what will enable our commitments are not just policy regulation and efficient technology, but also financing. An exemplary partnership between the government and the private sector is already at play, and we are making progress in each of the building blocks. Accelerated investments in green power, we just heard, this is an ever-changing number, but we are at about 11 to 12% of solar and wind power today, which was less than 2% a little more than a decade ago. The government's green hydrogen mission aims to make annual production of 10% of global demand And large companies can and are already taking a lead in investing in this. PLI and energy storage systems are here. Digitalization is increasing and can enable energy efficiency, decentralized electricity, and improve process efficiencies. Industry collaboration with clean tech startups, which are estimated to be about 20% of the entire startup ecosystem of the country, can also further fast track this transition journey. Lastly, developing a domestic manufacturing ecosystem across the renewable value chain has also started and needs critical handholding. For example, the entire value chain that makes items for materials for lightweighting of vehicles, EV battery systems, solar cells, modules, wafer, and more can be specifically turbocharged by government policies which focus not just on making the end product, but also on developing an indigenous supply chain that supports their production. Large companies like us can partner with academia for the technology and can also handhold small and medium scale industries to build these capacities. On the policy front, various regulatory changes have already been undertaken to ensure faster decarbonization. It is in fact inspiring and commendable to see the entire government machinery moving in a very purposeful manner to deliver the net zero targets. The carbon credit trading scheme, the renewable purchase obligations, the PLIs, the green credits, the National Green Hydrogen Mission, the Prime Minister Gati Shakti National Master Plan platform, and last but not the least, the Ecomark certification scheme are all very, very creative, and very, very purposeful policies which are driving us towards this delivery of the green revolution. These forward-thinking policies and schemes reflect the government's commitment to sustainable development and will play a very, very crucial role in guiding our transition to a greener future. As I had referred earlier though, we've set up ourselves for some really tough targets. That magnitude of a green transition will require a very clear, transparent, and a coordinated approach. I'd like to make a few suggestions to strengthen our efforts. An articulation of a national level green energy transition roadmap to establish clear interlinkages between all the regulatory and non-regulatory efforts, as well as to quantify the impact assessment of all of these efforts would be very useful. A case in point is the European Green Deal, which is set on several policy measures like CBAM, deforestation, biodiversity, circular economy, EU ETS, and many more. And with all of these coming together, the EU is expected to deliver the net zero by 2050. Something very similar to that in India is very much there and can be brought together in a more purposeful manner. Secondly, the grid transmission in India definitely has scope to be strengthened, and regional grid interconnectivities can be increased. Hydro and nuclear energy are viable options. The NITI Aayog is already working on developing many of these alternatives, and these could be fast forwarded. The Green Energy Transition Fund, which is essentially, from a compliance perspective, as you know, industry already pays quite a lot of implicit carbon price taxes like carbon cess, electricity duty, taxes on fuels. All of these can be brought together and pooled into an explicit carbon fund and utilized specifically for decarbonization efforts only. And ultimately, I think all of the national level, very purposeful initiatives will only work if we work in a coordinated manner with the states and ensure that the proper implementation of all of these happen. So there is a need in some ways to streamline policies across states and sensitize the states to take ownership of the green agenda as positively as the center has taken. A mechanism to ensure policies, regulations, and approvals are implemented and fast-tracked to reduce unease of doing green businesses at the state level would be immensely helpful. Let me restate that the higher regulatory burden means higher costs for business. And while good PLI schemes and capital incentivization has been announced and is very useful, we may also need to create easier and higher access to more low-cost funding, including tapping into all available global funding options. As a representative of the industry, I would like to reiterate the industry's complete commitment to the goals set by the Honorable Prime Minister and the government for net zero transition. Industry has been taking significant steps in delivering the quantum jump expected from us. At Hindalco, we pride ourselves on being a very sustainable producer, committed to integrating environmental responsibility in every facet of our operation. For example, we are pioneering the use of clean energy in primary smelting at a scale that has never been attempted in the aluminum industry anywhere in the world ever. We have set up a 100 megawatt round-the-clock solar and wind power project backed with a pumped hydro storage. This project earned the Energy Transition Changemaker Award at COP28, highlighting its transformative impact. Hindalco's Belagavi alumina refinery, as you may be aware, has been running on 100% self-generated renewable power, which is based from solar, wind, and biomass for the last 3 months. This shift has driven the carbon dioxide emission down to below 0.6, and this makes it the lowest carbon green alumina producer in the world. At a company level, we have committed to increase RTC renewable energy capacity further, aiming for at least 30% of our total energy, which is going to be approximately 2.5 gigawatts of green energy power by 2030. This is a tough ask given the metal manufacturing's energy intensity, but we are committed to doing this nonetheless. Let me conclude by stating that the transition to net zero in India promises to be a public-private partnership that the world will be truly envious of. The combined efforts of regulation, innovation, and investment will pave the way for India to lead the world in green energy and in setting an example of sustainable growth. The industry is excitedly looking forward to these times ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Saurabh, for sharing the industry perspective in the journey of net zero. Next, we have Mr. Manoj Tanwar, Chief Technical Officer, Greenco, who will share how technical innovations are driving us towards sustainable goals. Welcome, sir.
Good morning to the Minister, sir. Shri Bhupendra Yadavji, the Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and the Minister for New and Renewable Resources, all the senior officials, my co-panelists, and a wonderful audience, right? So let me share a few thoughts, some anecdotes also, which will be quite interesting in the journey. People say that we have to reach net zero by 2070. Some of the other countries who are also on the same path, I will just share some of the anecdotes from there. And also, why our path to 2070 is going to be slightly tricky than others. See, in a sense, if you look at India, India is a country where demand growth is expanding phenomenally. And we had Shri R.P. Gupta ji, who just mentioned that we have a significant scope for our demand growth. So our problem of how to solve that demand with a green solution has to be, is a path to green net zero. But our which problem to solve is not yet there, unlike other developed economies where there is virtually no demand growth, where the problem is already there in black and white. So you have to solve it with a green solution. Our problem is still, or a kind of challenge, or the demand question is still evolving, right? So that's one. We have to solve it with a green solution. Now that's the second part. And I just share the anecdote that I was just reading a few days back, that in one of the European country, they said that this is the 107th day in this calendar year where at some point in time, they had RE, which is more than 100% of their demand, right? And that's why there is a negative price on the exchange. And somebody said the problem is because they have a baseload technology which is nuclear-based, which actually does not have the flexibility. So the choice of that green technology or how to embed that green technology is also going to be a challenge, right? So our choices in terms of identifying the green solutions need to have different attributes. A, the flexibility of that supply, right?
not only the economics, not only the reliability, but the flexibility also. Okay. Now I come to a point that there are already, we have seen that within a few years, India has geared up tremendously. Let me put some numbers there. That nobody would have thought that in 2000, we would have come up with a storage plus RE based firm dispatchable solution. SECI did that. SECI has already done that tender in 2020, right? And now we are gearing. If you had asked somebody 2 years before or 3 years before, can we come out with tenders of about 50 gigawatt per year? People would have said, no, looks difficult, but we are already doing that, right? So that's the beauty of our journey, that we gear up when it is required, right? We set a target, we do it. Now that's the whole ecosystem has been geared. And this 2070 target, let me assure you, we don't think that we have to wait till 2070. India is going to become net zero before that. And not only our economy, I believe we will help other economies achieve their target also. Yeah. And I also want to highlight the importance of this energy storage in whole gamut, not only in the power side of things, but also in the industry side of the things, because we have to decarbonize our industries also. So there are some solutions we have already identified. And yesterday there was a good discussion with Mantri ji there, that already about 50% of our refineries have already committed to source green hydrogen by 2030. And our target of 5 million metric ton, out of that, 1 MMT is going to be met from that source itself. So that's one source, 50%, right? So these are some of the things that they don't strike, that we are already creating that demand ecosystem also. We are already there. These are tiny steps, but yes, once we pass these initial steps, we are going to accelerate. Now, in terms of our some of the thoughts that how we have progressed. Already if you see, there are a lot of storage tenders which are there. Now, storage is such a beautiful technology which not only provides you the flexibility which is required, which actually does not lead us to a solution where our exchange prices will become negative at one point in time in a day and then hit the ceiling at other points during the day, right? So we at Greenco are developing such large scale, large duration based energy storage solutions, which are going to be essential and which without storage, be it any technology, this journey to decarbonization is not going to be realized. And yes, there is a full support at various ministers level, at various state levels to actually implement them expeditiously. These are some of the things which happen behind the scenes in terms of there are a lot of consultations which the different ministries are doing, how to bring it fast forward, which obviously does not come in the public news every day. But yes, there is a full preparedness. That's why I'm saying that this 2070 is going to be achieved much, much, much earlier. Yeah. Now, in terms of, there are some thoughts that what is the next cue? From where do we take the cue of identifying our next challenge? I think we have a very, very vibrant power exchange. If we want to understand, or if we want to identify what could be the next solution which the industry or our country need, the power solution, I think the power exchange power price is the best indicator to tell which kind of power supply solutions need to be formed in different. Now, this is a country where actually there are many states, and every state has got a different power supply requirement depending on their season, depending on what they produce at that point in time, right? So if we kind of create an ecosystem where all the tenders are going to be clubbed at one place, instead of just doing a one-to-one mapping of one tender with one state, if we come out with a pooling solution where as there was a discussion yesterday, that there is a complementarity in demand between MP and UP. If we create an ecosystem where there is one tender which gets assigned to an agency, and this agency for 6 months give the power to the one state and gives the power to the other state in the remaining 6 months. That's how we can have zero waste of that power. We don't have to dump that power on an exchange at any time, and we will keep on moderating. Yeah. So I just want to close my remarks by saying that this new theme of carbon trading is also going to be a game changer in terms of achieving this net zero goal, right? And with that, I just want to thank all the support that the ministry has driven under our able PM Saab in terms of driving and galvanizing these changes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tanwar, for highlighting the pivotal role of innovation in the energy transition. And a humble request to all the speakers to be kindly brief in their remarks and address. I now invite Mr. Nishit Mehta, Chief Business Officer, Serentica Renewables, to share his thoughts with us. Welcome, sir.
Honorable Minister, government officials, thank you for the opportunity for us industry representatives to put forth our suggestions on how we achieve our grand and ambitious plan of 500 gigawatts by 2030. I'm Nishit. I work at Serentica Renewables. We are a renewable energy generator that is focused on decarbonizing hard-to-abate industries. One aspect that I'd like to bring out is that our total thermal generation capacity in the country is 240 gigawatts. 80 gigawatts more is purely captive thermal capacity. And we don't talk often enough about how we're going to decarbonize the captive thermal. If we are to achieve our ambition of 500 gigawatts, captive thermal decarbonization has to play a big role in that journey. And our goal should be to reduce dependence of these industries. We have a lot of energy-intensive industries, like my friend Saurabh represents Hindalco. We have aluminum smelting, zinc smelting, steel, cement, a lot of electricity-intensive industries that could play a pivotal role in our journey towards decarbonization and net zero. We at Serentica are focused exactly on that, and we have begun by decarbonizing the industries at Bharat Aluminum Company, Vedanta, Hindustan Zinc Limited, among many others. And we are about to commission 4,000 megawatts by June 25 towards this goal. And this and beyond will help these industries free up half or more of their captive thermal power plants, which can then be further utilized to give power to the growing demand of the state and the country. To achieve this, there's a few suggestions that I see could really accelerate the process. Number one is we have a beautiful Electricity Act that has a lot of great provisions around open access. Right now, the implementation of these open access norms is patchy across states. So if you could have a more smoother implementation of open access, which takes care, obviously, of the fear of the state discoms to not have premium, high-paying customers defect, but at least where the customers are not consuming from the grid, they're consuming from their own captive plants, and those are the captive plants that are being displaced. That's where we could really smoothen the process for open access to make sure that these industries can get the access to the grid to get power from the solar plants, from the wind plants that are located across the country. So smoother implementation of open access across states. Second is a large part of our momentum and growth over the last couple of years has come from the ISTS waiver scheme, which for CNI, for commercial and industrial customers, really makes a difference to make it commercially competitive without depending on any other source of power to provide this renewable energy and transition to renewable energy. And so if we could continue that, I think that would be a tremendous boost to this nascent industry on the commercial and industrial side to transition to renewables. Third, land. India is a very fragmented land ownership, and that represents a lot of time in terms of land acquisition for solar, for wind, to deploy these projects. So what I would request is if we could have better collaboration between the state and private players to streamline the process where possible, to enable more speedy deployment of renewables. And finally, the markets. We've got a pretty mature market in the electricity markets. We are at about 10–12% of the energy consumed in the electricity comes from the markets, but we have a long way to go. And deepening these markets will create the necessary depth and maturity required for the new renewable projects that come up to find a way, find a place to sell the excess electricity that is not going to be consumed by tied up PPAs and have an alternate revenue stream that enables further development and further deployment of renewables without the need for long-term PPAs for at least part of the energy. Finally, us in the private sector, both on the generation side as well as the consumption side, have a role to play. And I believe that more focus and more belief from the consumption side. Hindalco is a great experience. Like I mentioned, Balco and Itzadel are a great experience of CEOs of these companies taking a call of saying that we will move towards a new technology that can replace the coal power that we're already consuming from our captive thermal plants. So I would urge the CEOs and management of other large consumers across the country to really give a deep and serious thought as to how they can replace their carbon-intensive consumption using renewables. That's it from my side. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mehta, for your valuable insights on renewables and for the suggestions for a greener future. I would now like to welcome Mr. Chandra Goswami, Chief Financial Officer, Jackson Green, for his thoughts and insights. Welcome, sir.
So good morning to honorable ministers, all the esteemed panel members and everybody in the audience. I think it's pretty exciting to see the sort of response we've got for this event. I wouldn't have imagined that 3 days back to back we'll have housefuls in every session. So I think it speaks a lot about how we've organized this in Parpe. I represent Jackson Green. We are a renewable energy company. We are focused all across the spectrum of sustainable energy. I think from a sector specific, we are a solar EPC player globally. We are an IPP in India. We are doing about 1 gigawatt of capacity right now, and we're expanding that. We are also in the molecule space. So we are a very active green molecule player. We are doing 5 projects as an EPC, and fairly advanced ones. We are doing green methanol. We are doing green ethanol, 4th generation ones. So I'll be a little tempted to speak about, I think, all the aspects of sustainable energy, but I understand there's a clock ticking. But unfortunately, there's a clock ticking on the environment also, so we'll have to balance it somehow. So I think first I would try to compliment with what we have done as, I think, both as a nation in terms of bringing up the RE industry in India. I think it's a very commendable achievement till date. And it's just not because the ministers are sitting that I need to compliment the government, but you've done a great job with the constraints that a country like India has operationally on the ground. We've brought up, I think, a tiger. We've reared it up. I think it's the first few shackles that we need to remove it. There's a bit of challenges on land connectivity. I think that we've sort of addressed it multiple number of times. I don't think we need to repeat that multiple, but I think where the slight bit of challenge from, let's say, when I see it from a solar perspective does come from, is that, quality demand today is largely centralized. But unfortunately, there's also a grid which is very largely state-owned. And therefore, when you take it at a cross-section of national demand, a CTU, but when you have to set up projects in states and the demand is not coming and you have a connectivity challenge, I think that's one big challenge that if we are able to solve it, I think a SECI in a state would ideally be the best way to go forward. If you have multiple SECIs, and I'm not taking away what SECI has done, but if you have multiple SECIs in these states, the connectivity challenge that we face today, on the central side gets sort of sorted out. Several other thoughts of, ISTS, etc. I think we can debate all about those finer numbers, but on a broader scale, so if that could be done, that solves a lot of us challenges. Coming, I think, more now on the green molecule space, I think similarly the way, sirs, you have read up the industry on solar, our request would be that the same experience has to be repeated on green molecules. Unfortunately, we won't have the luxury of time that solar saw. So solar today, where it has come to a more commercial state, has taken us, to come to these numbers, has come us nearly 6-7 years of transition. Maybe the world may not have that longer time when it comes to adaptation of green molecules into our transportation sector or industry sector. And that's where our request would be if there could be the same policy on increasing demand. And I think that's where the government can play the most important role as being an enabler of demand rather than probably hooking us up on subsidies. So we clearly, from an industry perspective, will request you not to bring in subsidies, but only demand enabler provisions could really be important. And India, I think from a location perspective, is extremely well suited to being an export hub for molecules such as SAF and green methanol. Because hydrogen today, when you talk about just adaptation of green hydrogen, there are limited industries. You could bring it into oil and gas, to probably to steel, probably start blending it into the city gas distribution network. But as an export hub, with biomass available, with ethanol available, our ability to export sustainable aviation fuel, I think we would probably be among those limited nations that can bring in the cost curve, with RE being where it is as input cost. And so our request would be from the industry side to, I think, consider that. And the last request from a finance perspective I think for my profession, and being the CFO, is also to look at, on the molecule side, dollarization of contracts. If the demand can be brought into a dollarized contract, essentially the main cost in hydrogen, green hydrogen, is electricity. It's driven by capital cost that we bring in. If we can bring in a dollarized green molecule contract through SECI or through any of these parts, I think that can radically change our cost structures and make it more viable. So I'll limit myself here. Again, tempted to talk long, but thanks a lot for this event, and thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandan, for your valuable suggestions. Today we have with us Honorable Minister Sir, Shri Bhupendra Yadavji, who has been instrumental in steering India's environmental policies, making significant strides in balancing development with sustainability. It is my sheer honor to welcome Shri Bhupendra Yadavji, Honorable Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India, for his keynote address. Please help me welcome Honorable Minister Sir.
भारत के नेट ज़ीरो का 2070 का रास्ता क्या होगा? आज के इस थीम टॉपिक पर 4th ग्लोबल रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी इन्वेस्टर मीट में आयोजित इस डिस्कशन में हम सबके बीच में उपस्थित हमारे वरिष्ठ साथी, हमारे सम्माननीय रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी मिनिस्टर सम्माननीय प्रहलाद जोशी जी, मंत्रालय के सचिव और सुखद संयोग है, मेरे नाम राशि हैं भूपेंद्र जी, OSD श्री PK सिंह जी, मेरे साथ इस पैनल डिस्कशन में उपस्थित श्री सौरभ जी, मनोज जी, निशीत जी, चंदन जी, जिन्होंने इस विषय पर अपने विचार रखे। और ये सबके सामने है कि भारत ने अपना 2070 का एक नेट जीरो का रास्ता तय किया है। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अपने उद्घाटन भाषण में भारत के द्वारा इस संबंध में की गई विभिन्न उपलब्धियों को हमारे सामने रखा भी है, और उनका ये नेतृत्व और विज़न है कि भारत आज इस रास्ते पर बढ़ रहा है। पर अगर हम इस रास्ते की अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ को और चैलेंजेस को देखते हैं तो दुनिया में रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के आवश्यकता को, ज़रूरत को इसलिए महसूस किया जा रहा है कि दुनिया में लगता है कि अगर हमको कंजर्वेशन ऑफ इकोसिस्टम करना है, अगर हमें कंजर्वेशन ऑफ बायोडायवर्सिटी ऑफ द प्लैनेट में आगे बढ़ना है, अगर हमको सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट ऑफ सोसाइटी करना है, और अगर हमें बेस्ट यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेस को इस धरती पर हमेशा के लिए रखना है, तो हमको सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट के पाथ को चुनना होगा। सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट का अर्थ है कि हम अपने इकोसिस्टम को, अपने बायोडायवर्सिटी रिसोर्स को, अपने प्लैनेट में आने वाले क्लाइमेट चेंज के फ्यूचर चैलेंजेस को, और सबसे बड़ी बात है कि केवल ह्यूमन बीइंग नहीं, ये जो पूरी स्पीशीज़ है, पूरा जो प्लैनेट का सिस्टम है, इसको अगर हमें सर्वाइव करना है तो अपने टेक्नोलॉजिकल डेवलपमेंट के साथ इसका एक प्रॉपर मैनेजमेंट का सिस्टम करना होगा। और जब हम कहते हैं कि पूरी दुनिया में जो भी क्लाइमेट चेंज की लगातार वार्ताएं चलती हैं, दुनिया ने इकट्ठे होकर के जो विभिन्न मल्टीलेटरल फोरम को डिक्लेयर किया है, जहां हर वर्ष हम लोग मिलते हैं, वहां बार बार दुनिया के क्लाइमेट चेंज को के चैलेंजेस को एड्रेस करते हुए कहा जाता है कि मैनेजमेंट की दृष्टि से 3 विषय जॉइंटली, कलेक्टिवली सभी देशों को आके एड्रेस करने चाहिए। सबसे पहले, जितना परिवर्तन हो रहा है, इसमें अपनी पूरी दुनिया को ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन की ओर किस प्रकार से लेकर के जाएं। पॉलिसी इंटरवेंशन के माध्यम से, सोसाइटी प्रोटेक्शन के माध्यम से, टेक्नोलॉजिकल इंटरवेंशन के माध्यम से, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग के माध्यम से। और दूसरा विषय ये चलता है कि इसका एक्शन क्या हो, क्योंकि जब दुनिया में ये सारी बातचीत चलती है तो 2 नेशन पेरिस एग्रीमेंट के बाद भी निकल के आए, डेवलप्ड और डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज। तो केवल लोगों के बीच में नहीं, कंट्रीज के बीच में भी टेक्नोलॉजी और फाइनेंस को लेकर के इनइक्वालिटी नहीं होनी चाहिए, वरना हम इस जॉइंट गोल को कभी अचीव नहीं कर पाएंगे। और अगर सेव प्लैनेट की बात को करना है तो हम लोगों को दुनिया के सभी देशों को ये एड्रेस करना होगा कि हेल्थ, जस्टिस और प्रॉस्पेरिटी ये सभी जगह पर आए। और यही पूरी थीम को लेकर के पूरे पेरिस एग्रीमेंट में CBDRC के प्रिंसिपल को लागू किया गया, कॉमन बट डिफरेंशिएटेड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी। दुनिया के सब देश इस दिशा में एक साथ आगे बढ़ेंगे। और इसलिए जब रिन्यूएबल की बात की जाती है, अभी मैं आते समय पूछ रहा था कि रिन्यूएबल के कि जो डेवलपमेंट है, डेवलपमेंट में कार्बन के फुटप्रिंट जितने ज़्यादा होंगे उतने ही धरती को क्लाइमेट चेंज के और टेम्परेचर बढ़ने के खतरे बढ़ेंगे। इसलिए फुटप्रिंट ज़्यादा ना हो तो हम एक ऐसी सस्टेनेबल एनर्जी की तरफ दुनिया को जाना चाहिए, जिस सस्टेनेबल एनर्जी की ओर जाकर हम सोशल इक्विटी ला सकें, इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ कर सकें, दोनों तरह की। इकोनॉमिक इंक्लूसिव भी हो और सस्टेनेबल भी हो। अगर इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ इंक्लूसिव में क्लाइमेट चेंज के खतरों से, और तीसरा प्रिजर्वेशन ऑफ नेचुरल रिसोर्सेस फॉर फ्यूचर जनरेशन। जो रिसोर्स है, हम बार बार जो रिसाइकल, रीयूज या सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी पर हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी का जो विजन आता है, वो यही विजन है कि प्रिजर्वेशन ऑफ नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज फॉर फ्यूचर जनरेशन। तो लार्जली अगर देखा जाए तो आज की थीम का पहला है कि ये चैलेंजेस जो हमारे सामने हैं, ये चैलेंजेस क्या है। अब इस चैलेंजेस को दुनिया की दृष्टि से एड्रेस करने में हमको ये भी देखना चाहिए कि हमारी गवर्नमेंट का इसमें पॉलिसी रोल क्या है। पिछले 10 सालों में दुनिया के सारे फोरम्स पे जब हम क्लाइमेट चेंज की बातचीत करने जाते हैं तो प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में इंडिया की कार्बन डेवलपमेंट इस पूरे चैलेंजेस को एड्रेस करने के लिए थ्योरी है, और सरकार एक बड़े विजन के साथ पिछले 10 सालों में आगे चल रही है। सबसे पहले हम हमेशा ये कहते हैं, और दुनिया के में हमने कहा है, कई बार ये कहा जाता है कि भारत दुनिया के तीसरे नंबर या चौथे नंबर पे पॉल्यूशन करने वाले कंट्रीज में है। इसको इस दृष्टि से नहीं देखना चाहिए। हमारे पास दुनिया की 17% पॉपुलेशन है, हम कार्बन एमिशन में चौथे या पांचवें नंबर पे हो सकते हैं, लेकिन सारे डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज की 17% पॉपुलेशन मिला दिया जाए तो हमारा जो एमिशन 5% है, उनका 60% है, सेम पॉपुलेशन पे। सो हमारा कहना यह है कि इस डेटा को कंजम्पशन पे देखना चाहिए, और इसलिए डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज हमेशा ये कहते हैं जब फॉसिल फ्यूल की बात आती है कि आपको दुनिया को ये देखना होगा कि डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज की भी सिग्निफिकेंट नीड्स है अपने डेवलपमेंट के लिए, और इंडिया इज ऑल्सो हैविंग ए सिग्निफिकेंट नीड्स फॉर इट्स डेवलपमेंट। और इसलिए हम हमेशा ये कहते हैं कि जब इस पर बातचीत दुनिया में चले तो कॉमन बट डिफरेंशिएटेड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी जो है CBDRC प्रिंसिपल के बेस पर ही बातचीत होनी चाहिए। लेकिन माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अपने संबोधन में भी बहुत स्पष्टता के साथ कहा कि इतनी विकट परिस्थितियां होने के बाद भी इंडिया ने अपने क्लाइमेट एक्शन को आगे बढ़ाने का काम किया है, और इसलिए भारत ने माना है कि लो कार्बन स्ट्रेटेजी के डेवलपमेंट के लिए हमने अपने नेशनल सर्कमस्टांसेस को ध्यान में रखते हुए भी आगे बढ़े हैं। जैसा कि अभी मेरे से पहले वक्ता बता रहे थे, हमारे देश की एक डाइवर्स ज्योग्राफी है, डिफरेंट रेंज ऑफ इकोसिस्टम है। हमारे पास इनलैंड से लेकर के कोस्टल तक दोनों तरह के लैंड एरियाज हैं। हमारे पास प्लेन से लेकर जंगल के एक डिफरेंट प्लेसेस हैं। लेकिन ये सब चीज़ों पे हम देखते हैं कि क्लाइमेट चेंज का एक वल्नरेबल इम्पैक्ट भी है, और इसके लिए क्लाइमेट एक्शन कर लेना जरूरी है। और भारत ने जब पेरिस के बाद NDCs डिक्लेयर हुए और हमने अपने पहले NDCs जो सबमिट करे, उसमें माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के वक्तव्य में भी आया, ये दुनिया की हकीकत है कि G20 में भारत एकमात्र ऐसा देश है जिसने रिन्यूएबल की क्षमता और कार्बन एमिशन कम करने के प्रोजेक्ट के अपने लक्ष्यों को दुनिया में 9 साल पहले हासिल किया है। जो 2030 में हासिल करना था वो 2021 में हासिल किया है। और इसलिए ग्लासगो में जो अपने रिवाइज NDC हमने दिए हैं, और बार बार मैं आपके कॉन्फ्रेंस में इसको बार बार दोहराया भी जाता है कि हमने 500 गीगावाट के लक्ष्य को, और उसके साथ ही साथ हमारी जो 2005 की GDP थी उसके तुलना में 45% कार्बन एमिशन को कम करने के टारगेटेड को भी हमने फिक्स करके आगे बढ़े हैं। और हमारी डेवलपमेंट ग्रोथ और ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट आउटकम, इन दोनों के लिए भारत ने क्लाइमेट एक्शन करा है, और इसलिए तीसरा जो लक्ष्य इस बार हमने दिया है वो मिशन लाइफ का दिया है। और दुनिया में इस रिसोर्सेस को सेव करने की दृष्टि से आजकल हमारी मिनिस्ट्री ने भी पिछले 100 दिनों में आइडियाज़ फॉर लाइफ में देश के सारे IIT के बच्चों से लेकर सारे इनोवेटर्स को लेकर हमने कहा है कि 3 आइडियाज़ पे जरूर काम करना चाहिए। सेव वाटर, सेव एनर्जी, सेव फूड, सॉलिड वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट, कंट्रोलिंग ऑफ ई-वेस्ट, बैन ऑफ सिंगल यूज प्लास्टिक एंड हेल्दी लाइफस्टाइल। इसको लेकर के जब हम काम करेंगे तो मिशन लाइफ के विषय को आगे बढ़ाने का काम करेंगे। और इसलिए अब तीसरा विषय जो इसका वापस से निकल के आता है कि अपॉर्चुनिटी चैलेंज होने के बाद, गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी की क्लियरिटी होने के बाद, हम प्राइवेट सेक्टर को इसमें किस प्रकार से एंगेज करके 2070 के पाथवे पर भारत आगे बढ़ सकता है। और इसलिए भारत ने जब 2070 का एक विजन दुनिया के सामने भारत कैसे जाएगा ये रखा, तो हमें भी ये पता है कि भारत के विजन को अगर आगे बढ़ाना है तो सबसे पहले अपने एनर्जी सेक्टर को, रिन्यूएबल सेक्टर में हमको मजबूत करना होगा। हमें इलेक्ट्रिसिटी में उस कंसिस्टेंट डेवलपमेंट अप्रोच को लेकर के सरकार पिछले 10 सालों में प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में बढ़ रही है, जिसमें हम लगातार रिन्यूएबल ग्रिड्स की स्ट्रेंथनिंग के काम को आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं, ताकि इस विषय पर जब जितना आगे बढ़ेंगे हमारी कैपेसिटी को उतना ही हम आगे बढ़ा सकेंगे। दूसरा, उस टेक्नोलॉजी को बढ़ावा देने का काम है, और आपका पूरा जो प्रदर्शनी से लेकर के सारे विषय लगे कि रिन्यूएबल क्षेत्र में ये लो कार्बन टेक्नोलॉजी को बढ़ाने के लिए कितने प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट को हम ज़्यादा ईज आउट करके आगे बढ़ाने का काम करें। और तीसरा विषय जो है, सरकार के सारे पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क को देखेंगे और जितने भी नए रेगुलेशंस भी आए हैं उसमें ज़्यादा इस बात पर ध्यान दिया जा रहा है कि भारत इस बात को फोकस करे कि डिमांड साइड मैनेजमेंट को कैसे ज़्यादा बेटर किया जाए। उसी के बेस पे प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट को आगे बढ़ाने की बात सरकार के सारे पॉलिसी के विजन में आती है। लेकिन इतना करते हुए भी जो चौथा विषय है जिसको हमें ध्यान में रखना चाहिए, और जो हमने 2070 के नेट जीरो के अपने टारगेट में भी फोकस पेपर में और विजन पेपर में भारत ने दुनिया के सामने रखा है, कि रैशनल यूटिलाइजेशन ऑफ फॉसिल फ्यूल रिसोर्सेज विद ड्यू डिलिजेंस, उसकी भी आवश्यकता को कभी हम नकार नहीं सकते। और इसलिए पूरे इस इन्वेस्टमेंट समिट में भी, सम्माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के विजन में भी और सरकार के पॉलिसी एक्शन कार्यक्रम में भी भारत ने जो मेन जो फोकस किया है वो डेवलप ऑन इंटीग्रेटेड, एफिशिएंट, इंक्लूसिव, लो कार्बन ट्रांसपोर्ट सिस्टम को भारत ने आगे बढ़ाने का काम किया। जितना हम रैपिड और मेट्रो को देख रहे हैं, क्योंकि पहला सेक्टर है कि जो इस एनर्जी क्षेत्र में काम कर रहे हैं उस एनर्जी क्षेत्र में काम करने की क्षमता को, ग्रिड को, टेक्नोलॉजी को, इन्वेस्टमेंट को बढ़ाने का काम किया जाए। और दूसरा, रिन्यूएबल की क्षमता में अगर आगे जाने की बात करनी है तो जो सबसे बड़ा एमिशन का सेक्टर है वो ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का सेक्टर है। ट्रांसपोर्टेशन सेक्टर को हम ज़्यादा कैसे एनवायरनमेंट फ्रेंडली बनाने का काम करें। और तीसरा जो विषय है कि अल्टीमेटली ये पूरे डेवलपमेंट ग्रोथ में अर्बन सेक्टर का डेवलपमेंट सबसे ज़्यादा है, और इसलिए अर्बन डेवलपमेंट को सस्टेनेबल बनाने के लिए हम कौन से कंस्ट्रक्शन से लेकर बाकी एक्टिविटी को बनाने का काम करें टू प्रमोट एडेप्शन इन अर्बन डिजाइन, एनर्जी मटेरियल एफिशिएंसी एंड सस्टेनेबल अर्बनाइजेशन। और जब सस्टेनेबल अर्बनाइजेशन की बात हम करते हैं रिन्यूएबल की दृष्टि से भी, अभी जो प्रधानमंत्री सूर्य घर योजना आ रही है वह एक्चुअल में उसी का ही एक एक्सपेंशन है। और इसलिए उसके जो तीनों एस्पेक्ट है जो सरकार ने अपने स्मार्ट सिटी से लेकर बाकी विषयों में सरकार जब लेकर के आई है, उसका इंक्लूसिव एस्पेक्ट, उसका इकोनॉमिक एस्पेक्ट और इसका इकोलॉजिकल एस्पेक्ट, इन तीनों एस्पेक्ट और विजन पे लेकर के सरकार काम कर रही है। और इसलिए सरकार ने सबसे पहले अपनी एनर्जी एफिशिएंसी जो बायो बेस्ड मटेरियल है इसको इम्प्रूव करने के काम में पॉलिसी इंटरवेंशन सबसे ज़्यादा हम देश में देखते हैं, और मैं देख भी रहा हूं कि सामने बायो एनर्जी सबसे ज़्यादा है। दूसरा, अगर देखा जाए तो फ्यूल स्विचिंग का काम, और ये जो सबसे अच्छा काम हुआ है ये पूरे एनसीआर सेक्टर में हुआ है। एनसीआर में गुप्ता जी भी हमारे साथ डिपार्टमेंट में सेक्रेटरी थे, और लगातार इस विज़न को लेकर के हमने जो पीएनजी पे सारा चेंज किया है वो एक नया परिवर्तन एयर क्वालिटी और विषयों को लेकर के आया है। तीसरा, रिसाइकलिंग और सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी को बढ़ावा देने के लिए सरकार काम कर रही है। चौथा, ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन टेक्नोलॉजी को आगे बढ़ावा देने का सरकार की तरफ से काम हो रहा है। और पांचवा, जो सबसे बड़ा विषय है कि सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ करनी है तो इसके लिए एमएसएमई सेक्टर को एम्पावर करना ज्यादा जरूरी है, क्योंकि एमएसएमई सेक्टर देश का सबसे बड़ा रोजगार का सेक्टर है। रिन्यूएबल के सेक्टर में उसकी कॉम्पिटेंसी को, उसकी फाइनेंसिंग को, उसके स्किल को, यह आगे बढ़ाने के काम को लेकर के सरकार आगे बढ़ रही है। और इसका जो चौथा एस्पेक्ट आता है वो इंटरनेशनल कोऑपरेशन और फाइनेंसिंग नेट जीरो। दुनिया में जितना भी रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी के लिए बात की जाती है, भारत प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में हमेशा जो ग्लोबल साउथ है, जो डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज हैं, उनकी आवाज को लेकर के आगे बढ़ने का काम करता है। और इसलिए इतना होने के बावजूद भी हमने अपने देश के इकोलॉजिकल जो टारगेट्स हम लोगों ने, जो डेवलपमेंट के टारगेट और नेट जीरो के टारगेट दिए हैं, उसमें हमने कहा है कि देश का जो ग्रीन कवर है उसको भी बढ़ाने में और उसको भी सुरक्षित रखने के लिए सरकार आगे बढ़ेगी। पर जहां तक फाइनेंस की बात आती है, मैं बहुत संक्षेप में इसको सम अप करूंगा। उसमें इकोनॉमिक और फाइनेंशियल एस्पेक्ट कार्बन डेवलपमेंट को लेकर के सबसे पहला विषय है असेसमेंट ऑफ फाइनेंशियल रिक्वायरमेंट। अभी यहाँ पर कहा गया है और पिछली बार भी कॉप में ग्लोबल स्टॉक टेक लिया गया था। जब पिछला कॉप हमारा यूएई में हुआ था तो सारी दुनिया ने आके ग्लोबल स्टॉक टेक लिया था, और इस बार जब बोको में दुनिया के सारे देश इकट्ठे होंगे तो पहली बार न्यू क्वांटिफाइबल गोल की और भी लक्ष्यों को ध्यान दिया जाएगा, क्योंकि जो $100 बिलियन था वो बहुत पुराना हो गया। उसके बाद टेक्नोलॉजिकल इंप्रूवमेंट, दुनिया के बाकी देशों को सुविधाएं पहुंचाने की दृष्टि से न्यू क्वांटिफाइबल गोल दुनिया के तय होने चाहिए। और सबसे बड़ी बात है कि दुनिया में भी भारत हमेशा से कहता रहा है कि कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग को बढ़ाने के लिए क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस की एक एग्जैक्ट डेफिनेशन तय होनी चाहिए कि अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर क्लाइमेट फाइनेंस की डेफिनेशन में क्या आते हैं। लेकिन भारत में कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग को बढ़ाने की दृष्टि से दो बड़े एक्शन, एक तो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनर्जी ने कार्बन मार्केट के विषय को आगे बढ़ाया, उन्होंने अपने नोटिफिकेशन निकाला है, और हमारी मिनिस्ट्री की तरफ से ग्रीन क्लाइमेट फंड को भी पायलट प्रोजेक्ट के तौर में 100 दिनों के अंतर्गत हम लेके गए हैं। लेकिन निश्चित रूप से इस प्रकार की जो ग्लोबल रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी इन्वेस्टर मीट है, वो जो सबसे बड़ा लाभ, ये जो चौथी मीट के बाद भी नजर आने लगा है कि पूरे दुनिया में कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग और टेक्नोलॉजी ट्रांसफर, जब इसकी इकोनॉमिक वायबिलिटी बनती है, जब इसकी इकोनॉमिक मार्केट क्रिएट होती है, तो निश्चित रूप से वो बढ़ने का काम करता है। और ये करने का काम मंत्रालय, जो रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी मंत्रालय, उसके द्वारा लगातार इस मीट के माध्यम से इस कैपेसिटी को बढ़ाने का काम किया जा रहा है। और जो तीसरा एक बड़ा विषय है वो लिंकेज विथ इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड भी है। उसमें डेवलपिंग देशों को भी अन्य देशों तक जाने का और बढ़ने का मौका मिलेगा। लेकिन जो एक चौथा विषय है वो क्लाइमेट एक्शन प्रोग्राम, न्यू मल्टीलेटरल मैकेनिज्म फॉर सपोर्टरी इनोवेशन एंड टेक्नोलॉजिकल डेवलपमेंट। और हमने देखा है 2015 के बाद सोलर विषयों को लेकर के प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस बनाया गया। आज दुनिया के 137 देश हैं। दुनिया में जो क्लाइमेट चेंज को लेकर के एक विषय रहता है, जितना हम तूफान से लेकर के जो नेचुरल क्लाइमेट ही देखते हैं, CDRI कोलिशन फॉर डिजास्टर रेजिलियंस इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बनाया गया है। G20 के समय बायोफ्यूल अलायंस को बनाया गया है। बायोडायवर्सिटी को रोकने को पे कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग करने के लिए बिग कैट अलायंस जैसा विषय बनाया गया है। और सबसे बड़ी बात है जो हार्ड टू अबेट इंडस्ट्रीज है, अभी एल्यूमिनियम सेक्टर की बात कर रहे थे, ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर की बात कर रहे थे, कंस्ट्रक्शन सेक्टर की बात कर रहे थे। भारत ने स्वीडन के साथ मिलकर के लीडरशिप फॉर इंडस्ट्रियल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन बनाया है। ये जो न्यू क्लाइमेट इनिशिएटिव और जो एक्शन प्रोग्राम है, ये इस दृष्टि से बढ़ाने में काफ़ी मददगार होंगे। लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि ये जो 3 दिन की कॉन्फ्रेंस है, खास करके जो एग्जीबिशन है, एक्सचेंजिंग ऑफ व्यूज़ है, एक्सपर्ट की ओपिनियन है, पॉलिसी मेकर्स को सजेशन है और इंडस्ट्री को जो बूस्ट है, ये प्रधानमंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में भारत को 2070 के न केवल नेट जीरो के लक्ष्य को प्राप्त करेगा, ग्लोबल साउथ को भी कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग दे करके एक विकसित भारत जो दुनिया का नेतृत्व करे, उन संभावनाओं को पूरा करने का प्रयास करेगा। ये ऐसी मेरी आप सबको शुभकामनाएं हैं। धन्यवाद।
माननीय मंत्री महोदय, आपकी प्रेरक उपस्थिति एवं इस महत्वपूर्ण विषय पर आपके ज्ञानवर्धक संबोधन के लिए हम भी आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करते हैं। आइए हम सब एक स्वच्छ, हरित और सुंदर भविष्य की ओर जाने का संकल्प लें और आवश्यक कदम उठाएं। मैं अब माननीय मंत्री श्री को मंच पर यहाँ पधारने के लिए, फोटो के लिए पधारने के लिए मैं नम्र निवेदन करती हूँ। आप सभी से रिक्वेस्ट है, यू कैन स्टेप फॉरवर्ड फॉर अ ग्रुप फोटोग्राफ सर। Once again, a heartfelt thank you to all our speakers for their thought-provoking contributions and to all of you for your time and engagement. Let's all continue to move forward, driving the change that will shape a greener and sustainable future. Good luck.
Request the audience to kindly stay back for the next session.
Just a second, Surenjit. लोगों से निवेदन है कि कृपया वो यहीं पे रुकें, बिकॉज अभी हमारा अगला सेशन एग्रोवोल्टाइक्स जर्मनी के साथ है. Request everybody to please stay back. We have another session on agrovoltaics with Germany scheduled. Very shortly we should start. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to initiate and start our next session, which is on agrovoltaics with Germany. Request everyone to please be seated and embrace yourselves for the next session, please. Request all the dignitaries and the speakers of this session to please kindly join at the stage on the dais.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming here and spending time with us. We are just starting the session today for the morning. I would like to give a very warm welcome to all our esteemed participants, all the delegates on stage. Thank you so much for coming in and bearing with us because we have just got some delay due to some other technical issues. And thanks to everyone for coming in here for this session. As you all know, the session is about agrivoltaics, and the key focus is on India as a country. So we've been talking a lot about it. We've been discussing a lot with different stakeholders, but today we have the key stakeholders on board, on stage, who will actually present the recommendation, who will give suggestions and their opinion and thoughts on how we could actually scale up the deployment of this technology in India. Thank you so much. To begin with, I would like to invite Elizabeth, and who will do the opening remarks for the session.
Thank you, Jyotsna, and on behalf of the German government, thank you all for participating in this. Special thanks to our colleagues from MNRE, Sir, Mr. Chetani, and everyone who has been included in this endeavor. This session is one outcome of one of the work streams under the India-Germany platform for renewable energies worldwide, which has been launched between our two ministers. And we've had very engaged work stream leads of this. So special thanks to the International Solar Alliance. Jyotsna is here, Joshua is here for their support in this, and also in Sefi as the co-lead of this session. The German government is really proud that this is existing, and we really hope that this endeavor is being continued also beyond RE Invest. With that, I hope this will be a good discussion with all the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. As she just introduced about this platform, which was actually launched on Monday with the German government and the government of India, we have launched this platform and we'll be working on this work stream beyond RE Invest as well. I would like to invite Joshua Wycliffe, who is the COO of ISA, to give a context setting. Can we have a round of applause, please?
Morning, ladies and gentlemen, fellow co-panelists. I want to thank the government of Germany, the government of India, also the NSEFI, and the other sponsors and people who are organizing this event for this great opportunity for us to showcase this wonderful platform. And I think it's a great honor. I know we're running out of time. One of my fellow panelists was saying the previous forum ate into this. So I want to make it very quick. I've been asked to set a context, and I've also then been asked to go sit in the panel too. So I'll make it very short. If you today consider India as an agricultural powerhouse, the anatomy of the global agriculture has undergone a complete metamorphosis in the recent decades that you see, and it's very structurally very different now. I mean, I'm talking from my own personal perspective. I was a kid when I left India, and I'm the proud grandson of a farmer, a third-generation farmer. And my father was a farming scientist as well. So today, the agriculture that you see in India, the structure of agriculture is very different to what it was. And let that please form the context of today. And if you see today, 42% of the agricultural output comes from 3 nations. And India is number 2 in the world today, with an increase of about 350% in the last decade alone. So, 14 years. And this growth has come as it has grown over the last 3 decades for India. And growth in agriculture has increased not just in the 14 years, but it's been led by states that are not conventionally known to be agricultural states or agricultural progressives. The country's agricultural production so far has also surpassed US. Remember those days when there were gaps in our agriculture and there was gaps in our grains, when the United States stepped in and supported with its supply of grains. Today we've surpassed, and US has gone to about number 6 or number 7, and India now stands number 2. So that's the context of where we operate today. But then, if we could operate just because of the sheer size of the consumers and the farming, 70% of our countries, India's population lives in rural areas, how much more diversifying the farming practices could lead innovation into a lot more of success as we go forward. I mean, India's farmers, one of those things that's so crucial about this whole context is Indian farmers are a lot more diversified. They seek innovation. For example, to ensure year-round income, they just don't do crop farming, they're also into animal husbandry. They're also into other areas where the income is ensured that they get through the year. And one of those things today we're talking about is agrovoltaics and how it could help. I wouldn't say it's in the nascent stages. There's a lot of thoughts that have gone into it, a lot of thought that's gone into how we could improve this. But today's session should actually set us going forward. The agenda for organizations like the International Solar Alliance, the Ministry of MNRE, and all other stakeholders are in this game, to be able to focus and keep it sharp so we are able to see exact areas of policy gaps, regulatory practices, and also frameworks where we need to improve. And so today, we have panelists who are so gifted and experienced, so let's wait to hear from each one of them. So I welcome you all, and let's get it going.
Thank you so much, Joshua, for setting the stage and the tone. As we all know, for this platform, ISA and NSCFI being the co-leads and the lead for this, we have worked quite hard to get to the people to understand the real challenges and issues which are there on the ground, to understand the policy and regulatory issues, and to understand the kind of financing support they need to deploy this technology. We had very deep dive workshops with them, and I would like to present very briefly some of the findings that came out of those workshops. Talking from the policy and regulatory challenges perspective, I think there was a mutually agreed need that there's a pressing need to adapt existing schemes like PM Kusum to integrate agrivoltaics effectively. And it was suggested if the second phase of PM Kusum could have a component specific to promoting deployment of agri-PV in India. And the subsidies, those should be carefully calibrated to balance the need to increase farmer incomes with the interest of developers. Talking about land classification, there was a need for a framework that prevents the reclassification of agricultural land to commercial, which would impose higher taxes and reduce the agricultural productivity of the land. So the framework, the new framework could also incentivize the dual use of land for both agricultural activities and energy production from PV. So that was something which really came from the developers and some of the farmer organization. And they also press the need that they need some financing support as well. The policies, of course, they need to be in place so that they can have more support from the public entities. But the investment is something they really spoke about. And the initial high capital cost, which are needed for the agri-PV, is something that we all need to address. And for those, it was actually put across that the lack of suitable pilot projects, which means we do not have sufficient data on the effectiveness of different agri-PV models. It was recommended that R&D efforts should focus on developing metrics for energy generation, water and land use efficiency, and crop productivity. We also discussed integrating agrivoltaics into the grid and how developing clear guidelines for battery integration, backfeeding, standardization of DC meters, and attractive feed-in tariff models are very crucial. Last but not the least, harmonization between state and central government policies is crucial for the successful implementation. While central initiatives like Kusum scheme provides a framework, however, a consistent implementation at the state level would support scale-up of the deployment of this technology. From a capacity building point of view, it was highlighted that financial institutions, including NBFCs and domestic banks, they often lack expertise to assess and evaluate and finance agri-PV projects. Targeted capacity building initiatives, including information campaigns and guidebooks, would help these institutions develop dedicated schemes and reduce the time and complexity involved in this project. So with this, these are some of the findings which came through. We are actually developing a very comprehensive learning and outcome document from the workshop and the panel discussion which will happen today, and we will be presenting it to the right stakeholders so that we can have some action on it. Now I would like to introduce the moderator for our panel discussion, Ms. Suman Chandra ma'am. And thank you so much, ma'am, for agreeing to be the moderator for this. And she'll be taking up from here now. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. So we'll start this panel in an unusual manner from the corporate world. Out in the audience, how many people have at least one person who's still farming? Raise your hands. Just one. Just one? Just these many? Are we being honest? How many in the audience are the sole breadwinner for the family, or are the cause of food security for the family? Okay, so this topic is relevant for all of us. And before we start, just to simplify, because I always feel that there's a need of de-jargonizing this entire energy transition narrative. Agrovoltaic is nothing complicated. It's simply co-locating the source of renewable energy with the agriculture. So with that understanding and a common definition, we are moving forward. And we will identify with our very esteemed panelists today where we are, what is the state of affairs in this sector, where do we want to reach, and how do we reach there. So I'll start with my left-hand side with Mr. Ghosh. So Mr. Ghosh, you've been in this sector for a long time. What do you think would be the role of agro-PV as we move ahead in our energy transition acceleration?
Thank you, ma'am, for your question. And not been too long also in the sector, but in terms of your targets that have been set, they're very ambitious targets that MNRE has set. So sooner or later, and now also that we speak as a think tank to various developers to understand where bottlenecks lie, the recent trend has been that land becomes more and more challenging to obtain for just RE development. And there have been instances, multiple instances, where farmers are getting incentivized to part with their lands for RE development. So if you look at logic and you realize that in certain parts of the country, both can happen together, then, and of course, farmer upliftment happens along with renewable energy development, then it makes a lot of sense. Because all our work, I think there are many people in this hall who have worked together to find that there are specific pockets of areas in the geography of India which are very suitable for agrovoltaics and does not impact food security. So if focus from policy, focus from authorities, and focus from developers and farmers all align together, then agrivoltaics starts to play a very serious role in the future of both energy security and food security in the country. So I think Maharashtra has very good potential, Karnataka has very good potential, especially in the semi-arid areas. If you focus, it starts. And once you get to a stage where you have tenders being called, so as part of Kusum or Kusum A or C, then it becomes more mainstream. So we have to see how to get there, but this question of what role does it play, I think it plays a very serious role if all of us seriously contribute to making it a contender in the long term and the medium term.
I'll now like to go to Mr. Saraf. You have been running a very successful APV project. Can you share what has your experience been with the policy and regulatory framework, and what barriers do you see which need to be addressed for it to scale up in the country?
Yeah.
Thank you. Our project we have a few research projects going on, and in doing those projects and even otherwise, there's a bunch of policy and regulatory issues that we think need to be addressed. And I think the primary one which takes care of there's a bunch of things related to that is just the land use classification. So if you have, if we change the land use to industrial, then you can't use water, then your agriculture subsidies go away. There's a problem with the taxation for agriculture revenue, because on industrial land, even if you do agriculture, it's not agriculture, it's an industrial activity. So I think that alone is a must to enable, not to incentivize, but just to enable agri-PV. That needs to be done. And then second, I think just a coordination of MNRE with the Agriculture Ministry. So not just state and central, but within center as well in both these ministries. Because like the Agri Ministry subsidizes protected cultivation projects. Now, if some certain designs, so not all agri-PV, but agri-PV does provide climate resilience. So if certain class of agri-PV projects can be, counted in protected cultivation, then that would be a great incentive. And then the Agri Ministry is looking to incentivize horticulture production these days, so they're trying to get farmers to move away from grains and do more value-added crops. Now that works very well with agri-PV because the grains require a lot of light, and agri-PV is suited for fruits and horticulture. So that would be a great alignment as well. And just quickly, on the incentive side, now I strongly believe that in the long run, agri-PV does not need incentives, but initially because of the high capital costs and the agri not proven under such circumstances, if there's some incentivization for the first 500 megawatt or something, that would really kickstart this. And the third thing is the financing again, because there needs, utility scale projects have their own, it's pretty much figured out there. But for these would be smaller projects with the agri risk. So you need some, subsidized debt schemes available for this. And also like, just day before, the Indo-German investment platform was created, and if that can help get some equity funds, ESG funds, impact capital, that would be great as well. So, yeah,
thank you, Mr. Saraf. So going off, it's a good segue to go to Caroline then. One of the barriers that Mr. Saraf identified is the ease of financing that needs to be leveraged for accelerating agri-PV project. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Chandra, also for inviting me to the panel. Let me perhaps first start from a perspective of a development bank, as I come from KfW. And first of all, I would like to say, agri-PV, for me as a development banker, sounds like the perfect fit, a real triple win situation, I would say, because it offers solutions to problems of these days on three levels, at least on three levels. Energy transition, contribution to energy transition, contribution to food security, and very important, also contribution to the resilience of the farmer and climate resilience of the farmer. And therefore, we as KfW, and I'm also sure as the government of Germany, would be very happy to support these type of projects. When I look into it as a banker, of course, I also have to see how do we get bankable projects? The agricultural system in India, of course, is very much defined by very small scale marginal farmers, and I think from a banker's perspective, of course, you need to look into the credit risk of such a project, but also into cost effectiveness. And I think this is probably not only an issue for us as development bank, but probably for all banks in India. And therefore, I mean, the question is, how do we get an operational model which works, which is a good one and a convincing one? And if we deal with these small-scale farmers, perhaps we need to look into standardization, into a standardized product in order to make it easy to understand for banks. That can be one way for the small-scale projects. Of course, there are also, on the other hand, we might see also bigger farmlands. There, the approach might be different. But for this really big potential among the small-scale farmers, I think developing an operational model which probably can also be standardized with the agreements between the different stakeholders and so on can be a good approach. And as KfW, I mean, we could probably, or we could refinance like NBFCs. I mean, we have talked before together. NABARD might also be the perfect fit to promote these kind of projects. And of course, we are open to refinance, would be open to refinance such projects through financial institutions in India. Thank you.
So taking off from what Caroline just said, that as the climate resilience needs to be factored in, we need to have diversified way of how we do financing of projects. And then she ventured into also talking about focus on decentralized models more. So I would like to now go to Mr. Jethani. He has done tremendous work in the decentralized sector. So what do you see as a challenge for the smaller farmers to participate effectively in the agro-PV models vis-a-vis the cooperative farming approach or an aggregated farming approach?
Yeah, thank you. I would like to just put some points why the agri-photovoltaic is important for India. You see, the agriculture consumption in the country is around 18% of the total electricity consumption in the country. And this is more on the 11 agrarian states, including Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Haryana, Punjab, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu and Telangana. These consumes 95% of the total agriculture consumption in the states. And they are providing highly subsidized electricity to the agriculture sector. In Punjab, Telangana, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, they are even providing the free electricity. And in such a case, the total subsidy that is going from the state exchequer, if you calculate annually, it is around 1,570 billion rupees. So it's a huge amount. And still the farmers are not happy. They want that power to be supplied during the daytime. States like Gujarat, they have taken initiative to provide daytime power to the farmers. And for that, you need to create the distribution infrastructure. Now, if you want to have the solar power, you have the two options. One, either you can generate it through distributed, or you can take it from the large solar parks. For large solar parks, the only few states have the large chunk of lands like Rajasthan, Gujarat or Karnataka. But there are challenges. When you go for the large solar parks, there are challenges related to the grid balancing. Suppose I am going to have a solar park of say Khavda, which is 30 gigawatt is going to have. But suppose if there is a cloud coverage, there are some climatic issues, then the 30,000 megawatt can come down to 3,000. And there, getting that much power ramped up or ramped down is very challenging. In such a case, we have to move to the decentralized renewable energy. And now, as I mentioned, the state of say Haryana or Punjab, they don't have that land where we can put the solar. So we have to go to the agri-photovoltaic. And the cost difference between the normal plant and the agrivoltaic plant is just only the structure cost. And that can be managed when you have the crops that is being produced under the solar panels. That cost can be compensated through incentive, as some of them mentioned. And now this component A has already been included in the AIF, where you have this loan, you can get loan at the 6%. So I think that cost component can be managed with this lower interest rate. And there we need the more cooperation from the farmers. They can come together and provide their agriculture land itself where they can put the agrivoltaics on a still fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, as he was mentioning that now we have PV Kusum component A, which is very amenable to proliferation of agro PV in the country, coming under the Agricultural Infrastructure Fund, which kind of makes the low-cost financing available for agrovoltaic projects in India. So that's a good segue now to go a little global and request Joshua to share what ISA is looking at in terms of scaling up the capacity building and awareness about agro PV globally, just beyond the boundaries of the country.
Thank you, Director. So, am I audible? I think Mike's picking up. So one of those things I was thinking was, as I was listening to the various panelists, and this comes probably from my bureaucratic head, thinking from how we take it. If we start with India, where we start is, we consider this as a broader landscape, define the landscape, and once we have the definition of the landscape, then we are able to fit in the solution. So currently, if you look at the agrovoltaics, and I'm speaking from the point of view with ISA is involved, across the board, we look at floating solar, we look at mini grids, we look at various solar solutions to communities. And if you're looking at the farming communities, one of those things currently, not just in India, in many countries, is that we tend to have a superficial overall solution where we think providing incentives to farmers would just make the whole problem go away or would prosper the issue. But then, I mean, in fact, I'll go back to an example. Last week, I was in Armenia addressing a panel, and one of the questions they asked was, when you do policy making for agrovoltaics or for mini grids, is there one size fits all solution? I said no. And if you talk about farming as such and agrovoltaics, it's even more important and significant that one size does not fit. If you look at the Indian scenario, the Indian landscape, we've got many kinds of soils, many kinds of climates. The diversity is so huge. And your policy, if it does not broadly reflect the individual needs of a particular geography, then the solution doesn't fit everyone. And obviously the policy fails. So one of those things ISA does currently is we have a regulatory framework and a policy support unit with people with capacity who are able to frame regulatory support. Harvard graduates sitting in on the unit who are able to frame positions of countries, positions of departments that will impact practices, impact governments, impact investments. The second thing I wanted to talk about is ISA is open to supporting agencies who can impact nations, not just in India, but also outside in other geographies and other regions as well. Another area where we do impact is impact through advocacy. So, you know, in countries like India, where there are a lot of small farmers, you know, you don't have big farming companies and organizations. You have small farmers who all group up to become a huge number. So if now India ranks number 2 in the world, then what does India stand to gain or stand to learn? If you look at countries like Australia or even Germany, when they started off from the construction plans. You know, in Germany when they started, there were problems like in rural areas when they started putting up these solar panels on agricultural lands, there were questions of permits. So were they able to apply the rural building permits to it, or did they have to have something separate? Australia came up with a separate plan, a slew of plans where they were able to have separate permits other than building permits. The environment impact assessment processes were different. So they were defining it based on a rural area, based on a separate area. Today, whatever success we see in Germany or in other countries is because they paid attention to individual needs. So that's something that we need to learn in India as well to apply. And secondly, before I finish, I want to speak about the importance of advocacy. When you have a large number, the bigger message, the common message the superficial message does not reach the masses in person. That's the difficulty and the challenge with this. So advocacy has to be taken to the communities, and how we take it the most effective way. And I was listening to Carolyn. If I'm going to go say that, I've got the solution, this is what it's going to bring out, and these are the outcomes, no development bank or development agency is going to look at me. But if I'm going to go take something tangible with a touch and feel, and we've sensed this in ISA with other projects in mini-grids, the moment we have a marquee project or a demonstration project with certain outcomes, suppose we had a piece of a farm where agrovoltaics has successfully had the policy applied, the regulatory framework applied, and the outcomes and the profits are sustainable and makes the practice sustainable, then you have development agencies crowding to fund, because that particular demo projects has tackled including perceived risks. That provides funding opportunities. And organizations like ISA has financial mechanisms like the blended finance mechanism, which is able to tackle the perceived risk. Like some of you probably have heard about the Global Solar Finance Facility, where it's able to bring in the investors who are worried about the financial implications and risks, removes that, and is able to fund the whole project. I'll stop here at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. So, as we heard Joshua, no cookie cutter approach, bringing more human element in how we structure our products, and the importance of advocacy. He also mentioned how Germany has paid specific attention to some of these aspects. So I would like to go to Elizabeth to share the German success story on the agro-PV.
Look, I guess, in Germany, when it comes to innovative approaches in solar and dual land use, like Carolina has said before, we don't have the same kind of setup as in India. We don't have the same kind of problems, but as Joshua has also touched upon, we also have challenges when it comes to that. So also in the policy framework, we just discussed with our colleagues also from GIZ before, like what about the feed-in tariffs? How do we kind of construct a policy framework around agro-photovoltaics with the solar packages which have been decided by us, by the government, to really make this happen in the Germany context. And I think a few of these lessons would be interesting for India to go further into. And then again, like all the speakers have now pronounced, but it needs specific solutions for a specific context as well. And then to see where the scale-up really comes in, yeah? Piloting is a good approach to see, and then where do we then see the bankable projects that we can finance as development people with our development banks, with the MDBs, where can we work together? And I think there are very interesting ideas here also when it comes to the what you touched upon with the International Solar Alliance and what we've seen now with the International Solar Festival, the signing of MIGA of the World Bank and the International Solar Alliance to see where guarantee facilities can come in as well. So really to touch upon these in a holistic approach to see where also Germany comes in. Thanks.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I would like to now go to Mr. Julius Fass. GIZ has been doing tremendous work both in the field of climate change and energy. And what is your outlook about Asia as a whole vis-a-vis the job opportunities that agro-PV can create and the benefits that can accrue to the rural population?
Thank you very much. Just before answering your question, I would like to put one more put a point on the table. For me, it's very important that, and it also addresses your question in a way, that there are that triple wins we heard for agro-PV, but there's the fourth win, I would say, which is gender equality. Because, below the panels, you have...
At least we have a lovely panel today with a bit of equity.
Because below the panels, women can work on the agricultural, and also we can train them to operate and to maintain the solar panels. And so there are job opportunities, especially for women in the sector, which is important. And we heard about different challenges today: regulation, bankable projects, research, but there's one more thing, which is skills. That's where I think we have to come in, which is to train the farmers to not only become farmers, but also, as I said, to maintain the solar panels. And so I do believe that below the solar panels, which are probably run by a project developer, there are plenty of job opportunities for low to medium skilled workers. And I think we have to harness this and make sure that there is a complete environment, because we can't tackle all the challenges one by one: first regulation, then bankable project, then skills, and then research. But I think in order to have a thriving sector, you need to address all these challenges at once. And to that, we tried this in India. We worked on the regulatory field with IGF. They provided some inputs to the regulation. Then we worked with VVAC, of course, on the Develop PPP project to have a demonstration project which is visible, tangible, which can interest the investors. Then we also worked with the research. We came up with a Center of Excellence for agri-PV together with your agricultural institutions to make sure that we have the right product matrix or for each model of agri-PV. Because as we heard, there is no one-size-fits-all model. Each soil, each socioeconomic context needs different models, and we have to make sure that there are these models on the shelf, so then we can come to the standardized solutions which KfW needs and other development bank needs to fund this. And I think I really want to stress this point again: we need advocacy together with skill building in order to make this environment growing. And I think then, if we have all this environment in place, then there are huge job opportunities. And then I believe that agri-PV, although of course it's not a very large-scale operation, it can make a contribution to the 500 gigawatt scheme of India. And I do believe that once we reconvene here and next time at the RE Invest, we will see many more plants having been set up and running successfully. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very positive note. Ladies and gentlemen, he spoke very eloquently about gender. He spoke about capacity and skills that are required in the sector. And we are sitting on the land of Gujarat, and they have this amazing organization called Seva, where women are doing tremendous work in O&M. And I wanted to highlight that. So sometimes good work doesn't get that kind of spotlight. So I just wanted to thank amazing audience. We'll open the floor now for 2 questions because that's all the time that we have. If there are any questions. Yes, please. Mic there.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Madam. And it is a very great pleasure that you give boost the rural energy program, because most of the 70% population live in a rural area. This is the best program, and to the counterpart of the Germany, I am thankful to the German government. But question is how to make the capacity building. This is the main. So many youth is available everywhere in the whole India. How to make some special program, a capacity building on agro-voltaic. I am a life member of the Solar Energy Society, so why not put up some collaborative approach in such a way so the whole India can be a solarization?
Very good question. May I request Mr. Jethani to throw some light on the capacity building efforts of the central government, please?
Thank you. And capacity building is very important when you are going towards a higher capacity of, say, like 500 gigawatt. And when you are talking about the agro-voltaic, where the agriculture, as I mentioned, it is 20% or 18% of the total agriculture consumption in the agriculture sector. And if we want to convert it into the solar, it is 120 gigawatt. And that much capacity is going to be there in the agriculture sector. And that will create a number of jobs. If you consider that 6% per megawatt or like that, there is a huge number. And for that, we need a capacity building of this. And there are efforts going on in the ministry, like Surya Mitra program, and also some other programs that is going on, where the farmers can also join. Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Yes, please.
My question is to the panel regarding the advocacy of policy. Recently, we had a big problem with this farmers' revolution on a very good policy which was misunderstood by certain interest section. And now we are talking about basically curtailing the subsidies and others. We have also
Can I request you to be a little loud? Please hold the mic closer to your mouth.
We are talking about removing the subsidy-based application that drains the exchequer and the national interest, and converting it to basically photovoltaic, which will also require some amount of captive investment from the stakeholders. Also, we are also talking about other implementation issues like salt head card, transmutagenetic crops, and application of the crops on the health of the future generations. How do you think the advocacy will go down to the huge population, the voter base, given the fact that we are a very fragile democracy?
Very good question. Can I request Dr. Ghosh to take this?
So in terms of the subsidies that are being removed, with agrivoltaics presently is at a stage where without the subsidy, the developer cannot make a viable project in most cases. So in terms of the voter base, I cannot comment, but in terms of getting subsidies in the system for solar development and for farmer upliftment together, I think most governments should not have a problem with that, because when you look at the rates, the tariffs that are being used in most states, with an additional subsidy, if it makes a solar project with agriculture below viable, it still makes sense in my opinion. I do not know, I cannot comment on how it will go down with the voter base and all that, but from a technology and rural economy perspective, that subsidy is still required today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we heard very esteemed panelists on various aspects of the agro-PV. One thing is clear, that as we move forward and we require more and more energy, we cannot create more trade-offs between food as well as energy. Both need to go together and both need to be tackled together. So agro-PV sits at a cusp as a very beautiful solution. So that much is clear. We do have barriers, we do have challenges. Some challenges are being addressed, some challenges are in the pipeline to be addressed, but the most important takeaway from this panel is an all hands on the deck approach that all climate problems require. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I often say this and I repeat, agro-PV might be an idea whose time has come. And with those words, this panel is closed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, a big thank you to all the panelists, and special thank you to Suman ma'am for bringing it together, bringing such key stakeholders. We have people from private sector, we have people from financial institution, we have developers, we have representation from the government as well. So I think this is a very well panel discussion which was done, and we had a very rich discussion. Thank you so much for moderating the whole thing. And I would like to thank to all the participants, particularly the people who have actively participated and put across their questions and queries, which are very important, and we have made a good note of it. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot to everyone for participating here.
The rapid development of large-scale solar projects has become one of the major societal successes of our time. However, future adoption could be limited by shortage of suitable land as solar generation starts to compete with food production. To help resolve this conflict, Sunseed and Canada Energy, in partnership with GIZ and in collaboration with local farmers, have set up an agrivoltaics facility where solar generation is co-located with crop cultivation on the same piece of land. This 1.4 megawatts agrivoltaics farm on 5 acres of land is part of a bigger solar project located in the Marathwada region of Maharashtra in western India. The highlight of the project is the 1.5-acre, 4 meters elevated system integrated with a shade net house growing trellising vegetables, capsicum, cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, and beetle leaves, and shade-loving flowers, roses, hibiscus, chrysanthemums, and tuberose. All these crops are also being grown in an open area as a control environment. The innovative mounting structure uses Sunseed's tensioned cable systems, having the same robust design concepts as in suspension bridges. The easy-to-install and lightweight system is about 25% less expensive than conventional structures. The structures also incorporate several features that enable advanced agriculture, mechanisms for retractable shade nets, trellises for crop support, and foggers for temperature control. The shade nets can be retracted in just a few minutes based on the radiation intensity and temperature profile, which are monitored via weather stations to provide the optimal growing environment. In addition to the shade house, systems with lower elevations of 1.25 meters and 1.75 meters have also been installed, which incur only marginally higher capital costs than conventional solar projects. These sections will be growing turmeric, marigolds, melons, leafy greens, and Ayurvedic herbs. Initially, the land at the site was hard, clayey, lumpy, and full of weeds, making it tough to prepare the land below the panels. Many tractors with different farm implements were used to prepare the soil and create granular beds ready for cultivation. Apart from helping enhance crop yields, the shade house is designed to increase power generation as well. The higher albedo of the system, due to the highly reflective shade nets and mulches, along with the higher elevation and greater distance between rows of panels, is expected to double the bifacial gain. Separately, the cooling of the panels due to the evapotranspiration is expected to increase panel efficiency during the dry months. In a water-stressed region, it was imperative to have an efficient irrigation strategy. Water is being pumped from a well via a solar pump that connects to a drip irrigation network, which is triggered based on soil moisture sensors installed in each crop section. The reduced evapotranspiration due to the shade is expected to result in additional savings of 30 to 40%. Rainwater will be harvested via a drainage network aided by trenches below panel edges and gradation of the land such that the water flows to the natural drains at the periphery where it gets stored via a check dam. The solar panels are being cleaned via automatic cleaning robots, which are shifted from one row to another via an elevated walkway and supplemented by occasional water cleaning. The project is set up with IoT-based instrumentation to enable extensive R&D. This includes development of photosynthesis response curves and measurement of temperature profiles for simulating crops' yields. The project is set up with IoT-based instrumentation to enable extensive R&D. This includes development of photosynthesis response curves and measurement of temperature profiles for simulating crops' yields, and accurate bifacial gain analysis using spectroradiometers and albedometers. The research will help develop crop-specific technologies to create commercially viable and bankable projects. Agrivoltaics can have a profound impact, creating integrated, sustainable, and climate-resilient food-water energy systems. Agrivoltaics can increase crop and energy yields while reducing the use of land and water, helping form a win-win partnership between solar developers and farmers. Come, join us in this journey as we discover new facets of the fascinating world of agrivoltaics.